Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canada Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. And this is a book review segment on Skinwalker Ranch. This is the second book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, that George Knapp, Colm Kelleher, and Jim Lukatsky wrote. And we're going to talk about this in a second. First of all, article came out just recently in the Daily Mail. What it said was, revealed after 32 years, the most spectacular UFO photo ever captured, or the first glimpse of America's fabled top-secret Aurora spy plane program. In 1990, two young chefs photographed what they appeared was a UFO while walking near the Congrums in Scotland and took the pictures to a newspaper. The paper passed them on to the Ministry of Defense, MOD, then the photographs vanished. Now after 32 years, the photograph is revealed despite the MOD and National Archives doing their utmost to hide it until 2076 because of privacy concerns, they said. Retired RAF officer Craig Lindsay, now 83, broke the protocol. Here is the picture. It's not a bad picture. A plane in the background. A tree up above. But in this picture, in fact, the first glimpse of America's fabled top-secret Aurora space plane program? Question mark. Since the mid-'80s, there's been rumors of a silent, supersonic, geometrically shaped craft used to spy missions. There have been substantial evidence, but nothing has ever been shown to be built. But now you just saw the most famous UFO picture. I don't know what to say. I've seen some pretty good ones, and that's as good as the others I've seen. So it's interesting that they went to such lengths to keep that from you. Yeah, why is the question, right? Why? Now, we talk about psychics, people who can feel things, RVers. So I was at an event the other day, and there was a psychic there. And I asked this person, well, what would you say to somebody who told you that it's evil or it's wrong or religion would frown on you because they believe you're talking to a demonic entity and you could never really reach the spirit because this demonic entity would block your access? So I was interested in what this person had to say, and they said, oh, that's ridiculous. There's quite a difference when you're there and you're in that trance state, or you're trying to pick up the feelings. She said, you just know. And she said she's had both feelings, demonic and otherwise. So hard to say how she knows. She just says she knows. And I don't know. I respect both sides of the spectrum. And I'm sure I'll hear a lot from you about that. So this is part 3 of Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And in the summer of 2009, BASS, B-A-A-S-S, it was Bigelow's group that was working with the Defense Intelligence Agency. In 2009, they knew that they wanted to get a sampling of what had happened around the area from the ranch versus what's being reported just by the people on the ranch. And this is where some of the people say, oh, this is just a big conspiracy to make a mystery show out of nothing. What they did is they took a 2-mile radius around the ranch, and they went out and they interviewed a variety of different people and asked them some baseline questions. What religion are you? Your age? Whatever. I never saw the study. I have to go by what was in the book, and this is what they talked about. And what they said is, in that 2-mile radius, they interviewed 30 residents. And in that residential area surrounding the ranch, there were 4 police officers, 11 Ute tribal people, including a shaman, 12 ranchers, 6 business owners, and very interestingly, 50% of all the people they interested in that area were Mormons. Now, it is Utah, so I can kind of understand that. But of those people that they did interview, 11 of them had first-hand encounters, now get this, with a dog-like creature that could run at speed on 2 legs. And in a majority of these, there was orb activity simultaneously. And many of these were during daylight hours. Wow. Pretty interesting to say the least. 11 people in that area have first-hand encounters. 2 things interest me a lot. Orb activity and simultaneous to what they're seeing. So is the orb somehow overseeing these things? Is it a transport device to move these things? Some of you know this story, some of you may not, so I'm just going to tell it anyhow. When Harvey and Pratt and I were writing Tribal Bigfoot, we're in Oklahoma, and we were very near an area that Harvey knew a lot of people, and it was tribal land. And then we just went off, and somebody said that there was a ranch down by this river that had a lot of strange activity. So Harvey goes, let's go, Dave. We'll go knock on the door. I go, that's great. Go to this ranch, way out in the middle of nowhere. Knock on the door. And this older man comes out. Yeah. I said, hey, we're doing some research on activity that's been focused around this area. And we're interested to know if you've experienced any of blah, 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 blah. Guy looks at us, looks at Harvey. So Harvey has long hair, dressed in a suit or whatever we were wearing that day, and goes, yeah, come in. Something out of an X-Files movie. And we go into this farmhouse, clean, nobody else there. And on this back table, he had all these pictures laid out. And there's no way anybody knew we were coming. And we get over there and he goes, keep your phones away. Okay. So he kind of rummages around. There's a lot of game camera pictures and things, and holds up this picture. And the picture kind of looks like a wolf standing on its back legs with its head cocked to the side, almost more than what you'd think a wolf could turn. Harvey and I both looked at each other and said, whoa, because we had heard about these dogman creature in conjunction with Bigfoot creatures. And we asked him, how long has this been going on? And he said, well, I got it on my game camera a while ago. He's very evasive. I said, do you have any more? He goes, yeah. I said, well, we would like to work with you on some of this. And he goes, don't need it. I said, okay. Can we take a picture of this dog the way it is? Nope. I said, well, would you be willing to have us license the picture from you? Nope. We walked away and in the car, and I go, so Harvey, these people out here in Oklahoma aren't too friendly. And he goes, you know, Dave, that guy wasn't very friendly, was he? But I was wondering that night, how many other people in this area of Oklahoma have pictures like that? So the idea that, you know, there's some kind of dogman running around Oklahoma and Utah, I believe it. I believe it for sure because I've seen the picture out in the middle of nowhere. So So Bass, the company that Bigelow owned that was working with the Defense Intelligence Agency, they get all of this information back about who saw what, where, and guess what they did? They copied my work. They made a map. They made a map where all these things were laid out around the ranch. So that was in 2009. So that would have been right actually before I started to do the work on missing people. So I'm just kidding. They don't copy me, but that's what good researchers do. Now, witnesses also in that same area that they interviewed, they saw UFO craft, triangle-shaped, cigar-shaped, classic disc-shape, and balls or orbs of light. Why is that important? Because some of you would say, oh, this was just a figment of Mr. Bigelow and his team's imagination, and they were just trying to make a bundle on the land and make a name for themselves, which is just absolutely nuts crazy. If you're here and you don't believe or you don't have an open mind, why are you here? Because what we're talking about is outside the bounds of normal science, okay? Just the facts. It's a very, very unusual scenario that plays itself out at Skinwalker Ranch. Now, if you don't have an open mind, then you shouldn't be here. And if you just don't believe something because you don't see it, you probably shouldn't be here. But as we go on, so while Bass is doing this, they photographed two sets of human-type tracks that came together and merged into one. They saw other tracks through the snow, human-type tracks, that walked right through barbed wire without disturbing the wire, but also without breaking stride. Stride is the distance between two steps. They also found DNA hair samples that came back as inconclusive on some of these primate things. And I already tell you what the problem is with their research. When you work with DNA, you use these things called primers. And if you're working with humans, you use a human primer. You're working with animals, you use an animal primer. I'm sure on these cryptid things that are running on 2 feet that they're using animal primers and they're getting inconclusive results. If they used human primers, they would be getting results, which is why the DNA study with Bigfoot was correct, because he used human primers. So Bass, they took that map that I was talking to you about, and a map of just Skinwalker Ranch, not out the outside, and they broke it into 1/10 of a mile segments. And what they did is they went and they mapped electronic anomalies. See, they're mapping. They took soil analysis and they looked for contaminated places by ionizing radiation. They were concerned about radiation just like this film show is. They also brought some plants in and they used them as biosensors. Kind of like in the old days, the mines would keep canaries in the mine, and if poison air came in, it would kill the canary first. And they brought in these plants called spider wort, W-O-R-T plants, and tobacco plants, 6 of them each. And they put a controlled category of these plants in Las Vegas, and others they put here. And then fascinating, really fascinating what they did. Great idea. They tried some experiments at the ranch. And they didn't say exactly which games, but they put games up at the ranch with random samples generated. The area was monitored 24/7. The site itself appears it wasn't. They never said what games they did put out, but the results, and they got results, were described in a 360-page report that was delivered to the Defense Intelligence Agency in August 2009 through February 2010 was a study period. They got it in April 2010. Now, you may think, oh, we have a right to that because that is contracted work through the U.S. government. Try to get it. Try to get it. But I'd love to know which games they used and what patterns were generated and what was moved, etc. And then I've heard other people say, well, we don't even know. That might have been an attempt at communication. Maybe. The book also talked about 5 intelligence professionals, DIA, long-time government officials. The language that was used in the book is they had a visceral, anomalous experience while visiting the ranch. They got infected by a contagion and brought an infectious entity back to the families and the households. Remember before we talked about visiting the ranch and we said, oh, if it just bring this anomaly back. You know, what if you didn't bring just back an anomaly, but you brought back something deadly or something disease-like? And we've talked about the person driving down the road outside of Bend, Oregon, and the blue orb went through him and he got deathly sick. Now in the book, they talk about these 5 intelligence professionals. The professionals themselves that were doing the work seemed to be immune from this. But they transmitted autoimmune diseases, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Graves' disease, systematic lupus, and fibromyalgia. Think about that for a second. These families were infected with this stuff. After the official came back and they had entities and things playing out in their home. Remember that story a long time ago? Your home is your castle. I wonder if those people really thought it was their castle when every time they came home they never knew what was going to happen next. And then what's the triggering for it all to stop? Every time you go back to the ranch, does that kind of fill the gas station back up and they can continue to raise heck inside your house? Or is it time away from the ranch? The more time there is? Don't know. So, a lot of the people associated with the ranch had this background in biological issues. And when they started to find out that the people were infected with these type of unusual diseases, they started to try to do an understanding of the human mind, how it reacted, how the cells in our body reacted to whatever these people caught, etc., etc., etc. Well, here's the quote. Bass investigators concluded, quote, that a large, untapped reservoir of information lay inside the human body, and only if it could be, quote, decoded. When I read that, I thought, you know what that reminds me of? Like our DNA fingerprint. Everyone's different. How bizarre is that? Everyone's could be different. But a reservoir of information inside the human body, if it could just be decoded. So the question is, has someone already know how to decode us? And if that is the case, what's the secret? And then if they do know how to decode, what are they using that for? Are good, are bad, or testing, or what? Bass also did electromagnetic sweeps of the ranch. And they found strong, unexplained signals at certain locations, not always previously detected. And they started at 1210 MHz, went to 1232.5, 1238.5. They fell within a parameter of 1164 to 1215. And they stated that that's allocated for Earth exploration satellites. The signal was sporadic and not repeated. That's kind of interesting to me. It's related to Earth satellites. But the communication seems to be coming from the ground. Now, they never talked about the 1.6 that they're studying at the ranch right now, which to me is interesting. And then the current TV show found gamma radiation at different points. And at very high levels, it's deadly to humans. It's never good to have any dose of radiation if you can avoid it. This wasn't found by Bass investigators, but it's stated that their investigators are looking at it again because of the unusual nature of it. Now, one of the things that I would believe that the Bass investigators did since the first time they stepped on that ranch was to carry some kind of badge that showed exposure to radiation. That would seem like common sense. I don't remember them ever saying it. Maybe they did. Another thing Bass did was they brought in plants, like I said earlier, that they were going to use to help do research. And they wanted to see if the seeds were dormant or the seeds were active after a period of time, and if the germination rates were the same at the ranch versus controlled setting in Las Vegas. What they found is all germination rates in all the plants they used were higher on the ranch than off the ranch. Again, don't know what to say to that. So let's think about this for a second. We have somebody who was a caretaker at the ranch go down and say his heart was affected. The doctor said heart was affected by some type of impulse at the ranch. He was in intensive care. You have another individual at the ranch who had a huge bulge in the back of his head, not from falling, but why? And that was Thomas Winthrop. And if that's the case, and we've had radiation burns on some people at the ranch, including Travis, those are pretty good indicators of harm that would come to the researchers who were there. Now, Bass and NIDS never talked about anything that could harm the people that were working the ranch. But as I just explained, the relatives off the ranch were all the victims of this unusual activity, and I could say harmful activity. Now, if you were an entity and you wanted people to leave you alone, don't you think you'd, without wanting to hurt them, but you think you'd want to get an answer out there to the public saying, hey, strange stuff happens here. You know, entities follow us around, they go home. That would scare a lot of people from wanting to work there. And then some of them get these type of diseases. What if the entity had the ability to spread that? And rather than just making the people say a certain thing, spread the word that, hey, this place could be a dangerous place to work. Stay away. And I know there's still always crazy people out there. Oh, just go ahead and put me there and I'll do it and I don't care. Appreciate that. But I think the people that are working there right now are being very careful for a multitude of reasons. But I'd like to know about the people who own the ranch before Bigelow bought it and understand their health-related issues at this point in their life. It's been 20, 30 years now, so, you know, did they get any disease later in life that can be unexplained, or how they got it, or if it's one of these that is associated with the ranch. I think George has access to them without violating any of their trust. I wonder if they would talk about their health. So, covered a lot of ground there. And I appreciate you guys listening in. You brought in some really good questions. I try to answer them all. There is somebody who's posting on our YouTubes that stole my logo, and the title at the top is some WhatsApp. It's not me. Be careful. And I've tried to peg that person when I can about it being a illegal and fraudulent entry. So don't believe it. Now, if anything happens to me, you know, I'm off of YouTube and they get rid of me, you can always find me at Can-Am, like Canadian American, CanAmMissing.com. Also on Twitter, David Paulides at Can-Am Missing, and on True Social, D Paulides. I want you to know that I really do like everybody. And I've tried to not pick religious, social, political sides. Somebody asked me my direct opinion, I'll tell you, but there's a lot of good people in our world. And without you knowing some of those people who worked at Skinwalker Ranch, I have met them. They are good people. And if you're here because you trust my judgment or integrity, you got to trust that. And you might hear, we might continue to hear more about this ranch in the months that go on. I think that they've got some good things planned for this year. Hopefully they've got a bigger budget, and they can bring it all together so we can start to understand it a little more. And in the meantime, love your family. Take care of your man, I always forget. I'm going out right now. I'm going to go fishing. It's about 90 degrees outside. It's baking. And I'm going to wait a little bit more and get a little cooler. Going fishing in my hat. Keep the sun out of my face. And enjoy this great Montana weather. Great Montana outdoors. I saw Joe Hauser from the Montana Vortex last night. And he said, Dave, a whole bunch of people have come in to see us in the last week, all saying that they knew you from your show, blah, blah, blah. Hey, thanks for going over there. Joe's a great guy. He likes meeting you. He said, oh, no, everyone's really nice, really nice. Joe's a good guy. So get up to Montana, you go there. Have a good time. Anyhow, thanks for being here. See you soon. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Paulides out.